Hey everyone, lately we've been diving into why we can trust the stories in the Gospels, and we've been on this for some time. We've looked at all kinds of evidence, like those nifty undesigned coincidences, unexpected connections between the Gospels that corroborate each other in a totally unplanned way, and we've looked at things like archaeological digs and non-religious writings that back up a bunch of details in the Gospels. But here's the problem. Some folks really struggle with the idea of miracles in the Gospels, which makes them call into question the reliability of the whole thing. In our daily lives, we're used to the laws of nature just doing their thing. Every day I drive over a bridge to cross a river, but I've never seen somebody pull a Moses and split it in two. I've been to my fair share of funerals, but I've never witnessed anybody come back from the dead. Our everyday experience makes certain things seem pretty fixed. Dead folks tend to stay that way, and rivers don't magically part so we can stroll across dry land. On top of that, we've all seen how flimsy human testimony can be. People make mistakes about what they've seen all the time, and let's face it, not everybody always tells the truth. Even if everyone was super honest and never ever got things wrong, their word alone still couldn't really beat the evidence that we have for everyday stuff like gravity and whatnot. So, when we're stuck choosing between a belief backed by rock-solid evidence and one that is supported by shaky testimony, doesn't it just make sense to go with the stronger option? This is basically the argument of David Hume, an 18th century Scottish philosopher, and he's had a major impact on how biblical scholars look at history. Hume said, "A miracle is a violation of the laws of nature, and because firm and unalterable experience has established these laws, the case against a miracle is, just because it is a miracle, as complete as any argument from experience can possibly be imagined to be." Now, D.F. Strauss, often seen as the pioneer of modern biblical criticism, noted that Hume's essay on miracles carries such widespread conviction among skeptical and critical thinkers that it's viewed as having essentially settled the question. He's not the only one. Step into any humanities department today and sign up for a course on biblical studies or the philosophy of religion, and you'll notice a whole lot of reverence for David Hume. But was Hume right? Well, not so fast. A lot of philosophers today now recognize that Hume set up a false choice, trying to make us pick between miracles and the laws of nature. Nice try and all, but that's not how it works. Science tells us what normally happens when nature is left to itself. Miracles, if they do happen, occur precisely because nature isn't just doing its own thing. And this isn't just my definition here. I'm paraphrasing J.L. Mackie, a big-shot atheist philosopher. Regardless of their faith, everybody knows that, under normal circumstances, virgins don't get pregnant and dead people normally stay dead. So using the regularity of nature as an argument against miracles, it's not super convincing. As one of Hume's own contemporaries pointed out, a river has to flow before it can be diverted. We need to know what's normal to even spot a miracle in the first place. You see, in religious contexts, miracles are meant to serve as signs. So for example, when Jesus is asked by John the Baptist's disciples if he's the Messiah or not, Jesus says, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have the good news preached to them." In other words, Jesus' miracles were signs that God put his rubber stamp of approval on his message. Anybody can claim to speak for God with fancy words. For instance, in the Quran, Muhammad didn't perform any miracles. Instead, he just dared his critics to write verses better than the Quran to prove its inspiration. I get why people might find Muhammad's challenge as unconvincing, but the resurrection from the dead? Well, that's a whole different ballgame. A miracle like that would be a total game changer, showing someone really was speaking for God. But here's the kicker. For miracles to function as signs, they need to happen against the backdrop of a stable order of nature. That's what makes them stand out. Therefore, you can't use the stable order of nature as an argument against miracles in religious contexts. The resurrection wouldn't be a big deal if dead guys popped up all the time. Moses wouldn't have blinked twice at a burning bush if it was just a regular Tuesday occurrence. So again, science tells us how nature usually operates. That's it. But if there's a deity and they want to send a message, then why think that they would be limited by what nature normally does? So this whole idea that Hume set up some sort of everlasting check against believing in miracles is an urban legend. Hume got roasted by guys like George Campbell and William Adams back in his own day. Now, there is more to Hume's argument, and we're going to discuss it in future videos. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned as we get into it some more. Thanks for watching.